Alright, so today we're going to be solving using the quadratic formula. We are not going to get to this applications part until Monday. So just for right now, I know this is review and I know you know how to do it. Okay, we're going to fill it in just so you understand we're not using it quite today, but the projectile motion formula, hopefully this looks familiar, is this. Okay. Does that look familiar to you? It might be useful for us to find when this equals 0, because, let's go back, where it equals 0 or the x-intercept would tell us the time that the object was in the air, and that might be useful information for those problems. We already learned how to find the maximum, right? How do we find the maximum of something like this? We find its what? Vertex, okay. But now when we do quadratic formula, not till Monday on these kinds, it's going to help us find how long something's in the air. All right, let's just review again. V sub 0 is the initial velocity. H sub 0 is the initial height. The vertex is t comma h, and it tells us the maximum height and how long it takes to get there. And as I said before, the x-intercept would tell us then when the object hits 0, or 0 would be the ground. It doesn't, Ellie. That's not proper. Sure. When the object hits 0 or the ground. That didn't make sense. All right. So the quadratic formula is going to be, in general, used to solve this equation. We're going to solve ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So some words, and I asked you this on your last assignment, some words that mean the same thing are roots, zeros, x-intercepts. We're trying to solve when this equals 0. We've learned we can do it by factoring, but when it's not factoring, this is what we do. And the song sounds like the song that you had that goes along with the Jack in the Box. Did anybody have one of those when they were younger? No? Then what happens? Pop goes the weasel. Alright, so x equals negative b, or I would like to say opposite of b, plus or minus square root, make it a big square root, b squared minus 4 times a times c. All over, so put a big fraction bar that goes from the beginning of the negative of b to the end of the square root to a. Now, before you're like, holy cow, that's really, really hard, there's a lot of stuff. Remember at the end of your last test when I had you do that stuff with the weird square roots? You don't? You were really doing quadratic formula. It's not so, you were doing it already. It's not so bad, you just have to put A, B, and C in there. Okay? And you have to remember it. And now we'll just keep writing it down. I'll write it on the board for an assessment, you know. But there is the song to memorize it. And the song goes like this. You don't want to hear me sing it, Maggie? X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Nathan and Madison know. Okay, you ready? It can be a quiet voice. I'll sing it one more time for you. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What? For sure. People remember it. If I start humming it in pre-calculus, they'll be like, oh yeah, quadratic formula! Oh yeah! I mean, maybe they're not that excited about it. Maybe I get excited. Alright, so we're going to do an example. You're going to see, hey, once we put those numbers in there, not so bad. We'll sing it again for Sean when he comes in. Do you guys know what caveat means? Nobody does? Come on, somebody with a good vocabulary. Caveat. A caveat is a warning or a stipulation. My warning or stipulation is be very, very careful that you can only use this quadratic formula, because I'm going to pick out what A, B, and C are. You got to make sure first that there's a 0 over here. Okay? And so that there's not, don't pick out A, B, and C until there's a 0 there. Okay. Let's look at the first example. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check. Is this a 0? Yes. Let's write down. What is A, then? 2. B is 4. C is negative 7. And then here's my formula. I am going to plug the things in, and then I'm going to get my calculator out. X equals negative B. What am I going to write? Negative 4 plus or minus square root b squared. What am I going to write? 4 squared minus 4ac. 4 times what? 2 times negative 7. Alright, so do you guys see that this A and this stuff, I'm just replacing it with what A and C are in the problem. All over 2 times 2. Okay, so Sean, the song is to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. X equals negative B plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're going to all sing it again in a second, even though you... Too bad. Alright, get your calculators out. Do you guys remember when I made you do the order of operations before? What part did I make you do first? Awesome memory. Thank you, Audrey. Would you do under the square root for me and tell me what you get? I would say over 50% of the errors on quadratic formula are calculator errors. So what do we get? Help me out. 72. Thank you. So now I'm going to write negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 72 over 4. You did not get 72. Let's check then. So here's what I typed in. I actually, just how I saw it, here Maddie, I know you're not the only one. 4 squared minus 4 parentheses 2 parentheses negative 7. Now, I'm going to round. The square root of 72 is about 8.49. So when I do this, I'm going to have two answers because I have a plus, and what else do I have? A minus. So I'm going to do negative 4 plus 8.49, divide the whole thing by 4, and then I'm going to do negative 4 minus 8.49 divided by 4. That's what that plus minus means. Squiggly, because it's this approximate, make sure that you hit enter and figure out the whole top before you divide it by 4. If you want to be most exact, you can even do this. Do you get about 1.12? I'm going to circle it. Do you guys see what I'm doing on my calculator? If I wanted to not round it and just keep it as exact, I left it as a square root. So I did negative 4 minus root 72. Enter, then divide by 4. You should then get about negative 3.12. Is that what you get? Not so bad.